Hello, today is Christmas Day 2022. Happy holidays to everybody. I wanted to do a review of the long-term picture. I think it may be changing. I normally do this at year's end, but since it's changing, I wanted to get the information out earlier. Just remember that I have rules on my channel, and just because I say something, it doesn't mean it's right. We'll get to the long-term picture in just a minute. I just want to point out how well these green lines, which are prices at which prior FOMC announcement were made, tend to be good support resistance levels, and they continue to be. I think it makes sense to keep track of these lines. Okay. Well, I have lower targets and I have higher targets. I have a lower target of retesting the origin of this rising wedge. One reason is the rising wedge should retrace to its origin. And the other is spikes like this at bottoms tend to be retested at some time. So I do think we're going to retest this. But I also have a higher target of this green line. I also have a whole lot of higher MEJT targets, and they should print at some time. This is the wave count I'm using. It implies much lower prices, but it certainly isn't the only count. I'm going to show one other one in just a minute. But if it's right, we're going lower, but I'm not so certain it's right anymore. This is my weekly count. I think this trend lines are very important. Trend lines hit a number of times. We hit it and bounced off it. With this count, I really can't make the waves balance out perfectly, but there's an alternative count in which I can, and it involves re-examining wave green A at its origin. It implies that the low was here, and this is just an expanded flat at the low. Well, here's an alternative daily count. You can have an ABC. It's a pretty simple count. Here's your C. C was equal to 1.618 times A, plain and simple. And you look at wave blue C. There's your A. There's your B. It's a perfectly simple count. It implies we've completed 3 waves down, and this first leg is over. Doesn't mean there won't be a different leg at a higher degree, but it certainly is compatible with this drop being over. Now, just because it's simple and easy, it doesn't make it right, but usually the less fudging you do and the simpler the count is, the more likely it is right. So let's see what happens if you change the origin of this green A. You can count green A ending here instead of here. This is like 741 instead of 666. You got 5 waves down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your wave 1 is exactly equal to wave 5. And if you start counting here, and you have your wave A ending here, and you take that as 61.8%, you get this low within 14 points. And that's really as close as I've come with any of the counts I've come up with. Now, just because it's pretty doesn't make it right. But if this does hold, and I think there's a reasonable chance that October low is going to hold, even if it's retested or undercut slightly, the waves balance out perfectly right at the low. and they balance out better than they have with any other account I've been able to come up with. Market breadth has improved quite dramatically since the October low, and the recent decline has not been accompanied by a compatible decrease in that breadth. Despite this, nearly every analyst I see is calling for a January collapse. We have a put-call ratio at historically high levels. Whenever I see such unanimity of opinion, I tend to look for an alternative resolution. When everyone's negative, I think it pays to look the other way. I do agree we need one more drop, but there are a number of higher MEJT targets. They should print at some time. There's a wave count compatible with the October 22 low holding a retest. When that happens, the next drop could be the final drop for this bear market, and the low of this decline may already have printed in October. One need not risk any money on this now. I still think there's one more low coming. And just because today's wave count works doesn't mean other counts won't. But we have the wave count, the breadth, improvement, and sentiment indicators, all of which are compatible with a major low coming up, and next year being a very positive year. So maybe that'll give us a Merry Christmas. And that's today's call.